have a reading of the prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right. If I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life, and supremely happy with you forever in the next one. Amen.
All right. This is week 2. Go to the next slide, if you would. Down there. There you go. Last week we talked about this thing being into several phases. The first phase being the admission phase. We admitted or that we had or have a drinking or drugs problem. And the 3 questions are asked. These are the 3 questions that Dr. Bob asked Clarence. Do you think you have a drinking or a drug problem? He said, yes, I do. He said, do you want to do anything about it? What are you willing to do about it?
Anything.
And when do you want to get well?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. All right, go on to I think it's slide 13. Takes us to the second phase. You realize you guys have done the first step. You don't ever have to do it again.
Yes, sir.
The first 9 steps, you can do them one time if you'll do them this way. You don't have to do them this way. You can do them the old-fashioned way, or not the old-fashioned way. You can do them the way AA teaches them today, over and over and over again. But I was taught, as Clarence taught Steve, and as Dr. Bob taught Clarence, you go through these first 9 steps, you don't ever have to do them again. Why is that? Anybody know?
Because God doesn't forget.
Because 10, 11, and 12 are no more than a compilation of the first 9. If you do 10, 11, and 12 regularly, you are in effect doing steps 1 through 9. I don't have to wake up every morning and say, oh, I need to do my first step. I need to do it and admit I'm alcoholic. No, I admitted it one time. I don't need to admit it every 20 minutes. I admitted it and I acknowledged that I'm powerless over alcohol. That's a no-brainer for me. Now, I go to meetings and I'm surrounded with you men and the material to remind me daily that that was indeed my problem, that it wasn't just a drinking or a drug problem, it was a thinking problem. But I don't have to admit it every day. I admitted it. I'm done with it. I'm tired of living that old life. Matter of fact, truth be known, we're going to find out here tonight that that really wasn't you anyway. The Don Fugate that drank is not the Don Fugate that lives today. Okay, that was a different man. And we'll prove that biblically fairly soon here. Phase 2, faith steps. Phase 2 is a submission step. When you put the fact before our faith, the feelings will follow. What this means is you and I are motivated, or we're motivated by our feelings and our emotions. I felt like drinking, I drank. I got all frustrated and fearful or angry or whatever, I drank. My feelings always drove the train. And today it's backwards. Today the fact is that I no longer drink, that I'm a child of God. By faith, guess what? The feelings change. I'm no longer directed and motivated and empowered by my feelings. And it takes a while to do that. But most of us, whenever there's problems in your life, I'll guarantee you, it's because you're responding to your emotions or your feelings rather than the facts. And the facts are you don't have to drink and use today. The facts are you're not alcoholic or an addict. You used to be. That's a fact. I don't feel like that. Who cares how you feel? We don't make decisions based on feelings anymore. We make decisions based on fact. The fact is we have all the tools necessary. We have the power to enable us not to give in to the feelings. Didn't have that before. Remember last week we talked about what our problem was? What is your problem?
Powerlessness.
Powerlessness. Now we're getting ready to grab that power and bring it into our life so that we no longer have to, We have the power, that's the fact. My faith is that the power will never leave me nor forsake me, and it's always going to be sufficient in order for me to resist the feelings. The feelings are always going to deceive you. Always going to deceive you. They're always going to tell you something different than what the fact is. Now, there's nothing wrong with feelings. It's a good thing to teach your children, and you teach a child not to put their hand on the stove by putting it on something hot, right? You go hot, hot when they're real little, and they go, ooh, they learn real quick. Don't put your hands up on that stove. You get your fingers burned. Feelings are okay. There's a purpose and a place for us to have feelings. It is right to have a feeling to be fearful when you're walking down an alley in Overtown. You ought to be fearful. That's a good thing, right? The adrenaline kicks in and you can run faster than the guy behind you. Feelings are okay, but we don't respond to feelings anymore as it relates to drugs and alcohol. We don't trust our feelings anymore. Well, it felt good in my gut. Really? It felt good to rob that old lady? No. We don't operate on feelings. The truth is, if you rob old ladies, you're going to get caught eventually, and you're going to do some time. So we don't respond to feelings anymore. We don't listen. We don't entertain the feelings anymore. So, phase 2 is the submission step. We submitted. Go ahead and see what the next slide says for us here. Page 57 in the big book. So, save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of drink is never returned. And such times a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly he could drink, seemingly he could not drink even if he would. God had restored his sanity. How many of you early on still have a compulsion to drink or use? Because you haven't worked the steps yet. Now, I shouldn't say that as though it's an absolute, because Dr. Bob knew every day how many days he had sober. He died with damn near 20 years sobriety. He could tell you how many days he had. But the craving was removed. Bill Wilson had that blinding light experience. He never had the craving. The phenomenon of craving went away. God lifted that craving to drink for me immediately. I knew that I knew that I knew that I wasn't going to drink. The only thing I hadn't figured out yet was how I was going to do that. But I knew that I was never going to drink again. Now it was just a matter of somebody I wanted to come alongside and teach me how to do that. I think what I wanted to do is teach me how to drink without paying the consequence, but nonetheless, I knew that I was done. I was washed up. I was over with. What is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstance being willing to believe. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't have much choice. I would have tried anything else had there been an answer. I tried everything there was. I tried, and you've heard some of my testimony. You guys have all got a testimony. If you had one other thing to do besides be here and be willing to submit and surrender, you'd have done it already, I'm sure. That's what we call being at the end of the road. You're broken. You're at your bottom. Anybody here because they got a plan to move to the next phase of their life on their own? Yeah. You got to try to run it out first, because there ain't no other plan for the rest of your life except learning to live one day at a time. What is this but a miracle of healing? The circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his Maker, then he knew. Isn't it interesting? We don't know what we don't know until we step forward and make the offer, giving ourselves. Last week in our grace walk, we had you list a list of things that you surrendered. You gave up your right to this. You gave up your right to that. You gave up your right to live this kind of a lifestyle and to have your own thoughts and your own processes, your own goals. He gave all that up. That's all that's saying. He offered himself to his Maker, and then he knew. How many of you have done a third step prayer and you knew that you knew that you knew that your life was different? You didn't know how it was going to be different, but you just sensed and you knew, not a feeling, but in your spirit you knew that something had changed, that you're different. Even so has God restored us all to our right minds. To this man, the revelation was sudden. the revelation that there's been a change, there's something going on for almost all people that work through these steps to this point is the same. We know that there's something different. I've heard it from some of you guys about these studies over the last couple of weeks. You seem to be somewhat excited. We're on to something. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. Some of us grew into it more slowly, but He has come to all who have honestly sought Him. Those are capitalized letters. He, being God, has come to those that seek Him. That's biblical. Seek Him first and His kingdom and all His righteousness, and it'll all be given to you. Seek Him first. That AA uses the terms first things first, don't they? Wonder where that came from. Straight out of the Word. When we drew near to Him, that's God, He disclosed Himself to us. When we drew near to Him. Well, you're not going to draw near to God without submitting to Him. I dare any of you to arrogantly approach the throne of God and say, I got this great plan for my life. God, if you'd only rubber stamp this, we'd be all right. How many of us tried to dictate how God was going to work in our life? I'll do this, but I won't do that. And you better perform this way, God, or else. Isn't that crazy? That's insane. Go on to the next slide. See what we got here. Quotes from Clarence Snyder. You've heard it said, fake it till you make it. Clarence never subscribed to that. We got an honest program. We tell guys right off the get-go, be thoroughly and rigorously honest. And then we turn around with the next breath and we say, oh, it's okay, fake it till you make it. It doesn't make sense, does it? Clarence always said, if you don't believe, make believe. Make believe until you can believe. That's a form of submission. I'm giving in. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go along as if this thing will work out. If you're not sure, use my belief. Act as if what I'm saying is true. I have no reason to lie to you, is what Clarence is telling all of his people, what Bob was telling Clarence, what I'm telling you. I have no reason to lie to you. If you're not sure that there's a God, if you're not able to submit, if you're not able to come to believe that there is a God, use my God. Trust me. My God's big enough for you to doubt Him until you do believe. Philippians 4:19 says, and my God will meet all your needs according to His glorious riches in Christ Jesus. Any spiritual need that you have, God is willing and able, quite able, to meet those needs. We may not always have what we want, but we're always given everything that He wants us to have. Mark 11:22, have faith in God, Jesus answered. I tell you the truth. If anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes what he says will happen, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Now, let me ask you this question as it relates to this. Do you believe that God has the power and the ability to tell and use you to pick this building up and throw it into the ocean? God could do that, couldn't He? Do you believe that He would?
Absolutely.
That he can? I do too. I believe that God can do whatever He wants to. He's God. He spoke everything into existence. And that's all that's saying. He's saying, if you believe as though, not fake it till you make it, but believe until you do believe. If you believe that God has that kind of a power, you're ready to surrender your life to Him.
Gave it to Samson.
Huh?
Samson asked for it one more time. Give him the script one more time for the Palestinians. Pull him down.
He can do whatever He wants to, can't He? Now, I've had evidence in my own personal life of God doing some things through my life that I said, hey, no way, as absolutely impossible that God could do this with me. And I won't share some of those things that I want to brag. But God has done some pretty miraculous things in this drunk's life. And He's prepared to do the same in yours. Now, what's that going to be? I don't know. Can I guarantee it's going to happen before dark? I don't know. Could it? Sure it could. My faith is God could use you to preach a sermon Sunday morning and change lives and change hearts. That's my belief. My belief God could keep you sober for a month so that you could sponsor 15 new guys. My faith is God could use you to bring about a cure for cancer. Now, will He do any of those things? I have no idea. But I believe that He's quite capable of doing it. The God that I serve, I've witnessed so many miracles in so many different people's lives that I have no reason to doubt Him. Why would I doubt Him? And any man that's sitting here breathing, or woman that's sitting here breathing alive, going through what we went through, that still doubts, wow, how arrogant is that? Go to the next one. But about the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what God said to you? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. The God that I serve is not a dead God. You know, Buddha was a real live man, and he died. Muhammad was a real live man, but he died. Jesus is the only man that ever came as God that resurrected. We have proof of the resurrection. My God is alive. He's not dead. I'm real comfortable giving my life over to something other than a dead man. Why would I want to follow a dead man? He can't overcome his own life. I don't want to do business with it. But He's overcome the grave, as He promised, as it was prophesied. You know, the statisticians, if you will, if you were a gambler, the odds of a man meeting all of the prophetic earmarks or bookmarks, if you will, of Jesus coming true the way that it did, perfectly the way that it did, without missing one thing, is like taking a silver dollar and throwing it into the middle of the state of Texas, knee deep in silver dollars, and reaching in and pulling out the same one. Phenomenal odds that Jesus would be predicted so many hundreds of years before by so many different men in so many different ways, lived his life to fulfill all of those prophecies, and then be executed and resurrected from the dead. The odds of that all happening, this is not some fairy tale. It's not made up as it went along. It was all predicted hundreds and hundreds of years beforehand. You can bet your life that Jesus is not dead. I bet my life. You can bet your life on a dead God if you want to, or on a dead hollow philosophy if you want to, or on a methodology if you want to. But I bet my life and my sobriety on a living God. Go ahead next one. Now, faith is being sure of what we had hoped for and certain what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. I can't prove any of what I just said to you. But my faith is that it happened. And I've been living my life, stepping out in faith one day at a time, that there is a living God that is with me and guiding me and inspiring me and holding me back and giving me the strength and the power I need to resist the things that I need to resist in order to maintain the life that I do. Nothing short of miraculous. One day I'm standing in front of the judge and he's shaking his bony finger. You ever notice judges always have bony fingers? Shaking his bony finger at me, and he said 12 more ounces is going to get you 5 more years. Walked straight out of the courtroom and out onto the steps and said to my brothers, man, we need to find a new water hole. Now that's craziness one day, and the next day I'm on my knees begging for this God that I didn't know anything about. I was afraid, deathly afraid of. I didn't know how it was going to work, but I was begging for some relief. Now, I drank for another 5 months after that. But there was no doubt in my mind that was a turning point. That was a point that said, I'm giving up. I've had enough. My flesh was so strong I hung on for another 5 months. And finally I got to a point of brokenness where I said, I don't care You can call him living, you can call him dead, you can call him Fred, you can call him Jesus, whatever you want to call him. I'm just tired of hurting. Somebody come along and help me and show me what I need to do in order to quit self-destructing. And that's all I really wanted. I didn't want to quit hurting. I didn't want to quit hurting other people. I just wanted to quit thinking of blowing my brains out every night. I wanted to quit thinking for an easier, softer way. I just wanted to live like the rest of the world. I wanted to be somewhat normal if that was possible. And the impossible part for me was my whole family was drunks. They all died drunks. How in the hell was I ever expected to be any different? That was my genetic predisposition. I didn't think there was any hope for a guy like me. But there was hope. The guy showed me by their faith, not my faith, their faith that I could do it. And he told me things like, if I can do it, you can do it. Okay? How do I do it? Sit down and shut up. Well, how does that demonstrate you need faith? You need faith before you sit down that chair ain't going to bust underneath your butt. That's a good place to start. None of you even thought about sitting down, but whether that chair was going to hold you, did you? Just automatically, we assume that the chair is going to hold us when we sit down because that's what a chair does. I don't have any doubts that God is going to be with me tomorrow because that's what He does. He's always with me. Now, I hope not to take it for granted, but don't we take a lot of things for granted? And that's demonstrating a certain amount of faith? Sure it is. I have faith today. If I don't drink, I won't get drunk. That's not intellectual. That's a spiritual axiom for me. I cannot drink today. I don't want to drink today, and I won't drink today. That's the statements of faith. Go to the next one. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, because everyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists, and He rewards those who earnestly seek Him. It takes faith to enter into a relationship with God. You can't enter into it intellectually. You can't outsmart Him. You can't outthink Him. You can't out-barter Him. If there was any barter that God would have listened to, I had them all. You plead, beg. Lord, if you get me out of this one, I'll never do it again. Well, thank you for trying, Lord, but it really wasn't you that got me out. It was the bail bondsman. I forgot about my buddy who had money. I'll use you next time, God. Not realizing or not acknowledging that it was God that sent my buddy to bail me out. Next one, please. Step 3. You guys realize that you have just gone through the second step the way Dr. Bob took Clarence through, Clarence took Steve, and Steve took me. You guys have finished the second step. You have a problem? You want to do some more writing? Do some more praying? You want to talk about it a little bit? You want to have a discussion group? You can have a little candlelight meeting about step 2. Have you or have you not come to believe that there is a God and that God can change you? That's all it's about. If you come to believe that there's a power that you need that's greater than you, that can restore you to sanity, the only other thing you got to be convinced of is you're insane. I didn't think I was insane. I just thought I was victim of bad luck, rotten judges, dirty cops, sneaky probation officers, tricksters. That's what they were. I didn't realize that I was insane. You know, our big book says that the first step in recovery is what? What's the big book say?
Honesty.
Huh? Admitting? No.
Powerlessness.
No. We had to concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. It's a concession. We concede that we were alcoholic, and all that that implies. Certainly implied a great deal of insanity with me. I was nuts. I was crazy. Whether I was drinking or I wasn't drinking, I was crazy. And so were you. The first step is admitting our station, our lot in life, where we're at, our condition. I need help. It's crazy for a guy to defy a judge again and again and again the way I did. It's crazy for some of us to do the same thing over and over expecting different results. To live a lifestyle of thievery and dishonesty and whoring around, to live that kind of a life and to think that we're not going to pay a price. That's crazy, isn't it? You know, with the exception of George maybe, do you know any 50-year-old drunks that got it together? Not too many. Most of us don't make it to be 50. Not the way I drank at 25. I was shocked myself when I was able to get sober at 35. How am I still living? And you, how did we do it? Had to be something up there. So we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. That's the first step. Our second step. First step is we admitted that we were powerless. We needed a powerlessness. And our life was unmanageable. It certainly fit me. Then we came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Not restore me to a former state. My former state was one of insanity. And I think it started when I first drank. 12, 13 years old. I think I started drinking alcoholically. Now, I didn't always drink. 12-year-olds don't normally get to drink daily the way I did when I was 30. But I wanted to. I don't know about you, but the first time I took a drink, man, I hit a home run. I can still feel that going down. I might have even been younger than 12. I remember growing up in Ohio as a young kid and Grandma giving us those hot buttered rums when we got sick. I was the sickliest winter kid you ever seen in your life. I like those hot buttered rums. And man, it make you, oh God, it can shiver. And it wants to come back up, but when you can hold one down, man, you just feel good all over. That's crazy. That's insane. That wasn't physical. That was mental. That was spiritual. That was a death of a man who was destined to end up as a drunk. That first drink started me off. Step 3. We're still in that submission phase. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as
We understood it.
We understood it. Notice in the big book, and I don't care if it's the 4th edition, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, that's italicized. What's that tell you? Italicized.
Okay.
What's it mean when you italicize? What's the purpose of italicization?
To separate.
Emphasis.
Right.
Emphasis on what word? We. Who's we?
All of us.
Alcoholic.
We. The first 100 men and women. As the first 100 men and women understood what? God. So you would think it would be important to find out, wouldn't you? Who was this God that the first 100 men and women who wrote about this thing, who was that God? Was it Buddha? Was it a dead God? Was it Mohammed? Was it the group? Was it a higher power generically? Who was the God that the first 100 men and women understood?
Jesus.
Jesus Christ. It's all through the writings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Go to the next slide. Being convinced. We read this part at every AA meeting. We're alcoholic, could not manage our own life. No human power could have relieved our alcoholism. God couldn't, would if he were sought. That's step 1 and 2, isn't it? Being convinced what? That we're alcoholic and we're nuts? Our life's out of control, it's unmanageable? We believe that God could, only God could fix our insanity. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? Good question. What do we mean by that? This is the author. writing to us, to the newly formed Alcoholics Anonymous group. What do we mean by that? Just what do we do? The first requirement is we become convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. That was their foundation. If you got a plan, run it to its end, because that's a self-will plan. And we're not going to yoke ourselves and our program and our reputation, our time and our energy with your stupid plan, because we've run that and it don't work. Any life run on self-will is doomed to fail. When I got sober, they told me things like, you need us and we don't need you. And don't forget it. I thought, man, that's some cold-hearted dudes. But the truth was, I needed them a lot more than they needed me. Because they had the key to success, and I didn't know it. The key to long-term quality sobriety, and I didn't know it. And they said, if you got any other plan, go ahead and run it out. It's okay, we're not mad at you. But don't drink our coffee and waste our time and whine and piss and moan and crap about the judge and the old lady and the girlfriend and the rotten boss. Don't tell us your sob stories. Go on and do your thing until you run out of answers, and then come back. And they called it a bottom. Matter of fact, when we'll read a little bit later on here, when Clarence was in the hospital detoxing. Now, how many days they normally put you in a detox?
3.
3 days. Back then it was a week, 5 days, 10 days, something like that. So they detoxed him with formaldehyde and honey. Clarence was in detox, and Dr. Bob came in and sit on his bed and said, do you believe in God? I said, I don't know, maybe I do. He said, maybe nothing. Either you do or you don't. Well, I guess I do. You think that was a pre-qualifier? So if you got any plan other than my plan, and my plan is to, he didn't know it at the time, but Dr. Bob's plan was to get him on his knees and surrender his life to the Lord in the hospital. I had told this story at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings before, and they go, oh, you can't tell a guy he can do the third step right away? He's still shaking. Well, why don't we wait 5 years to see how he's doing? What do you mean I can't tell him about Jesus? Tell him on day one. Oh, well, if you talk too much God stuff into them in a meeting, they'll go out and get drunk again. Really? If Jesus runs them out, the booze will run them back. Don't be afraid to talk about your faith. Okay? Now, you don't have to be offensive and hit them over the head with the Bible and talk Jesus every other word. You can be Jesus to them. You can love them right into the kingdom. Earn the right to share the good news.